Now on to an NDTV special report. The current refugee crisis shaking the world is defined by Syrians fleeing a war at home, trying to enter Europe. NDTV's Srinivasan Jain is on the ground bringing us this special series. And up first is he travels to Suruk, a town on the Turkish side of the border with Syria, where children may have escaped the horrors of the Islamic State but find themselves confronting a life as modern-day slaves.
In a town at the edge of a country at war, we meet 12-year-old Shemsin, stacking shells in a cloth shop in Suruc, just a few miles from the border with Syria. Shemsin is from Kobane, the Syrian border town overrun by ISIS. A bloodbath ensued, thousands fled. Shemsin's family was amongst them, one of the millions of Syrian refugees in Turkey, the invisible majority of the migrant crisis roiling Europe. For 8 hours of work, 6 days a week, he earns a pittance.
He works that at this.
Doing what?
I just do the basic work like cleaning.
How much is he getting?
He gets 20 lira per a week.
He says he misses school, but there is no choice. What about school? Does he not miss being in school?
I miss.
You miss? He was going to school in Kobane?
Kobane. Kobane medrese. Yes.
And he was doing well? Across the road is Muhammad, 13, also from Kobane, also no longer in school. His new skill, stitching curtains. The wages and the hours are the same. How much is he earning?
He gets 20 lira per week.
20 lira. And what time to what time?
He starts at 8 and finishes at 6.
Nearby is 13-year-old Khalid, who has learned how to operate an embroidery machine. He says he has done this now for 3 years, which means he started at 10. For this experience, he has earned a small wage increase.
He said until 1 month ago, he was receiving 20 lira per week.
20 lira per week, okay.
And now he gets 50 lira per week.
These children are not the only one. In the bazaars of Suruc, the children of Kobane have become omnipresent for the opportunities they present, working long, hard hours at less than slave wages. Ask the men who employ them and they say they're giving them a fair deal.
Bu şartlarda az değil.
He said within this condition it's not less money.
Türkiye'nin ekonomisini göz önünde bulundurursak,
when you make a comparison with the economic condition of Turkey, it's not that much. It's not that less, sorry.
Okay.
With those life conditions, it's not that less money. Mustafa.
How are you, Vasu? In a rundown neighborhood of Suruc, we meet Khalid's parents. Their story is harrowing. They used to live in Raqqa, the Syrian town that now serves as a de facto ISIS capital, and then to Kobane, where the ISIS followed them, and now here. Mustafa, a plumber, says he has little choice but to put his son to work. How often do the children get to buy new clothes?
I
bought this t-shirt in Syria. These are also, he bought them in Syria.
It's still the same.
But it's difficult actually.
This is not to suggest that what we've seen represents the entirety of the experience of Syrians in Turkey, or that Turkey isn't doing enough. In fact, it's spent billions of dollars to help those who've crossed the borders. But what it does indicate is unless the world turns its attention to supporting Turkey's efforts and away from simply those who've landed at Europe's doorstep, the crisis for those who've stayed back is only likely to get worse.
There are not enough jobs for these more than 2 million refugees. So that's a very big economic burden actually for Turkey. as I said, Turkey spent more than 7 billion US dollars already, and just to manage this whole process.
Yes.
But what Turkey received from the international community is limited to 417,000 only.
Khalid's parents, however, like most of these refugees, are unlikely to land at Europe's gates. They simply cannot afford it.
She said we can't go because we don't have money. He said we don't want to go because we want to be close to our home country.
But as we found when we traveled to the Syrian border, to the edge of Kobane, they cannot return home anytime soon either. So we've reached now the border between Turkey and Syria. Just across the barbed wire fence is the town of Kobane, the largely Kurdish majority town of Kobane, which witnessed some of the worst fighting when ISIS was on the march. And you can still see the ruined buildings. The extent of destruction even now is very, very severe, even though it's now been almost 8 months since Kurdish forces have recaptured Kobane. And that's the reason why that a large percentage of those who live here, 80,000 people who lived here, continue to remain displaced, continue to try and find shelter in Turkey or wherever that journey takes them. Like Khalid, like Muhammad, like Shamseen, Aylan Kurdi too was a child from Kobane. His family's attempts to take him away to a better life ended in devastating tragedy. But as we found, the choices for those refugees who stay back are hard, even harder for the very young. With Manas Roshan and camera person Xavier, Srinivasan Jain in Suruç in Turkey for NDTV.